We're just about ready to start our 3 o'clock show. I'll get going here in a few minutes and explain a little bit of what's going on here. My name is Mark Schneider. I'm part of this Model T assembly team that you see in front of you here. What you're about to see is really sort of the demonstration of the assembly of a Model T chassis that would have been done during the period of the assembly line early on in the Ford Motor Company. So once the boys get most of the components laid out, I'll tell you a little bit about the story of both the Ford Motor Company, the Model T itself, and a little bit about its impact on the sociological aspect of the world as well. So before we get going with that, Reed, if you can pass this special challenge over to that little gentleman over there in the red sweater. We like to time our events, so we're going to pick a volunteer out of the crowd. There we go. So when I give you the signal, you just hit that start button and we'll start the timing here. But before we do that, I'll introduce our team for you this afternoon. This is a group of people that have been doing this for quite a number of years. Our predecessors, our parents and aunts and uncles started this team back in the early 60s, and we've been doing this here at Greenfield Village since 1963. So we're proud to say this is our 61st year of coming back and doing this bit of demonstration. So something that we're very proud of. And for the 73rd anniversary of this event, it's quite nice to see this tradition carried on. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce the team, starting here. Noah Schneider from Kitchener, Ontario. Eric Schneider, also from Kitchener. Brother Kurt from Kitchener. You can see a theme here. Jacob from Woodstock, and Bobby Saunders also from Woodstock. Rob Saunders from Long Point, and Reed Schneider from London, Ontario. So that's your team. We got lots of helpers here. A couple of Mars usually. Yeah. Owen Sound. Anyway, are we ready, folks? How's our timer? Are we ready, bud? Okay, go. First thing you see is the vanadium steel frame that's being put onto the front axle assembly. All these various sub-assemblies would have come from a different part of the plant here on Highland Road. 20 horsepower, 4-cylinder motor being dropped in. That would have been assembled on the upper level of the plant and dropped down to the moving assembly line. The front end is being raised up here. The Ford started producing the Model T in late 1908, and it was in production from 1908 until 1927. In that time, they produced over 15 million Model Ts. The first ones between 1908 and 1913 were hand assembled. The car itself became very, very popular. It was a relatively cheap car for the day. Started off in 1908, the touring cars were selling for about $850. As they sold more and more of them, they got more and more efficient with the whole production of them. The price dropped, and by the early 1920s, they were selling them for $220. A very affordable car. Mr. Ford was obsessed with making sure the costs were controlled. He owned the entire production system for the whole car. So because of the popularity of this car, they were selling quite a few of them, and he had to buy up the whole production chain. So from the iron ore to the steel plants to the entire production was controlled by Ford. He owned the railroads that brought in the material, and that way none of the production could be stopped by outside influences. Boys are installing the wire wheels front and back. The engine itself is quite a piece of engineering, a little different than most of the other manufacturers of the day. You'll see that there are 3 points of contact between the motor and the frame. Most other vehicles had 4 points of contact. The problem with that is on the very rough roads that they rode on, the frames would twist and break those motor mounts. Ford overcame that with the 3-point suspension system like that. You have to appreciate that most of the people that bought these vehicles had never owned a car before in their life. So they were literally showing up at the dealership in a horse and buggy and leaving with a new Model T. The control system that we'll demonstrate here in a few minutes was quite simple. 3 pedals and spark and throttle on the steering column, which Bobby's installing there. Eric's dropping the 10-gallon gas tank on the, that was under the driver's seat there. The gravity feed system between the gas tank and the carburetor. The tank was slightly higher than the carburetor, so it flowed downhill. The problem with that system is if you're going up a steep hill with not a lot of gas, of course you run out. Every Model T owner said no problem. They just back down the hill, turn around and go up in reverse, and that way the car could make it up the hill, and on they went. The other thing that you have to appreciate is that the roads and the whole transportation system that these vehicles ran on was very crude. They were mostly run on gravel roads. There wasn't a system of interstate highways. There wasn't a system of gas stations every few minutes like we are used to today. So if you went on a 50-mile trip from, say, here to Walled Lake, it was quite an adventure. You carried a few gallons of gas on the running board, a couple of spare tires because tires were very unreliable in the day, and you were running on some very rough roads. The other thing you have to appreciate is the sheer volume of the number of cars that Ford produced at the time. As you look around the field here today, you'll see hundreds, literally hundreds of different manufacturers of various brands. Ford in the early 1920s had 55% market share. That means that 55% of all the cars in the entire world were Ford Model Ts. That's how he controlled the market. They were cheap, reliable, and everybody had one. That record of market share and also the number of cars, they produced 15 million of them in that 19-year run, wasn't surpassed until many years later when the Volkswagen finally surpassed it in the 60s. Looks like the boys are getting ready to go. In peak production, they were producing 9,000 of these vehicles per day. Think about that, 9,000 by hand in the early 1920s. There was 10,000 people per shift going in and out of the Highland Park plant. 30,000 people worked. They worked 6 days a week, producing over 50,000 cars per week. Today, they're lucky to put out 1,500 trucks a day at Rouge. There we go. Our time. Pretty quick. Okay, 4:56, just under 5 minutes. Not bad. We'll let it warm up for a few minutes. Then Rob's going to jump on the temporary driver's seat there, the gas tank, and show us the operation of this elaborate transmission. As I mentioned a minute ago, the 3 pedals, we'll go through that, and the 2 levers on the steering column. And this is how you operate the vehicle. So his right foot on the brake pedal on the right there. Bobby's going to let it down there. He's working the throttle, which is on the right side of the steering column there. He'll hit the middle pedal, and that'll push it backwards. Maybe not, but he's going to the other pedal first. Running it forward, and now reverse is just the middle pedal there. So the other thing that most Model T owners learn to do is how to start a vehicle on compression. You saw how the boys had to crank this to get it going. On a cold, wet day, that was kind of difficult, so most Model T owners would learn a little trick. We're going to show you how to stop your car after a long run so that it would start quite easily the next time. It's called starting it on compression. So what Rob's going to do is load up the gas a little bit, retard the spark, and then shut it off, and that'll leave a little bit of gas on top of the piston so that the next time they go to turn the key on, it'll start on its own. You won't have to crank it. So whenever you're